At Imola, what was supposed to be just another Grand Prix weekend turned into a nightmare for Lewis Hamilton. It wasn't a crash, a mechanical failure, or a major mistake on track that stole the spotlight. It was something far more subtle but deeply troubling: silence. Not the kind of silence that follows a stunning victory, nor the reflective silence of a team deep in thought. This was the cold, unsettling silence of a radio left unanswered, of a voice that should have been guiding Hamilton through chaos but instead barely spoke. That silence from the engineer's side of the radio would go on to spark not just technical concerns, but a wave of questions about team dynamics, trust, and internal priorities at Ferrari. From the outside, it all started with what looked like small problems. A few brake inconsistencies here and there, some slight discomfort with how the car reacted during key moments. Nothing major, nothing that screamed disaster. Until the problems kept coming back race after race. Before arriving at Imola, Hamilton had already gone through 2 difficult weekends. He was disqualified in Shanghai, and then had to fight tooth and nail for a spot in the midfield during a grueling battle at Suzuka. By the time the Imola weekend arrived, his confidence was no longer rock solid. It had already started to show cracks. Still, Hamilton entered the Imola weekend with optimism. During the first practice session on Friday, he showed signs that Ferrari might have finally nailed the setup. Flying down the straight at nearly 300 kilometers per hour, Hamilton posted the 5th fastest lap, only a 10th behind Oscar Piastri, in the McLaren. That result, even in practice, brought a sense of hope, but that feeling wouldn't last long. In between sessions, Ferrari made 2 minor adjustments to Hamilton's car. On paper, these tweaks were so small they should have been completely unnoticeable. They included tiny changes to rear ride height and preload on the master brake cylinder, tolerances that measured less than half a millimeter. And yet, that tiny change ended up triggering massive problems. As Hamilton returned to the track in the afternoon session, something didn't feel right. The brakes felt inconsistent. The balance that had made him confident just hours earlier was gone. He pressed the brake pedal and was met with uncertainty. Over the radio, he described the feeling as a lottery, not knowing what to expect every time he tried to slow the car down. It was an experience eerily similar to what Charles Leclerc had described earlier, calling the SF25's warm-up procedure horrendous. According to Ferrari engineers, the changes should not have made such a big difference. But what looked small on paper turned into a massive issue on track. The operating temperature of the brakes jumped beyond 900 degrees Celsius, creating uneven wear, particularly on the left front disc. This wasn't just a setup problem. It was a safety concern. When a driver is racing through high-speed corners and braking zones, the last thing they need is unpredictability when slowing down the car. And that's exactly what Hamilton was facing. But this issue wasn't only about brakes. It was about communication, or rather the lack of it. Every driver at the top level of Formula One trusts their race engineer to be the calm voice during moments of chaos. At Mercedes, that voice had always been Peter Bonington, also known as Bono. The bond between Hamilton and Bonington had been built over years. They had a rhythm, a trust, and a shared understanding that didn't need full sentences. A single word or even a tone change was enough for both of them to know what needed to be done. That connection made Hamilton feel secure, focused, and in control. But at Ferrari, things were different. Hamilton's engineer, Riccardo Adami, is experienced, but he's new to working with Hamilton, and at Imola that lack of deep understanding showed itself in the worst way. When Hamilton asked questions over the radio about his braking issues, Adami's replies were short, hesitant, and lacking a clear plan. Analysts reviewing the radio logs noted that Hamilton and Adami sounded like they were on different wavelengths. This wasn't a surprise. After all, it was already a known issue from previous races, including in Australia. Ferrari had even promised to fix the communication gap after earlier misunderstandings. Yet at Imola, Hamilton found himself once again asking for help and not getting it. Radio logs showed that Hamilton made 5 separate requests for a brake map reset, trying to find some way to stabilize the car. In return, the longest response from Adami was just 7 words. To put that into perspective, Charles Leclerc received 3 different suggestions from his engineer within a similar 30-second window. On the surface, it might not seem like much, but when you're going 280 kilometers per hour, every second matters. And when the person who's supposed to guide you sounds unsure, the silence grows louder in your head. Even more curious was the fact that both Ferrari cars were having similar brake problems, but how the team responded to each driver was very different. Leclerc got quick suggestions and strategic changes to help manage the problem. Hamilton, on the other hand, received vague instructions and was even told to stay behind Leclerc in Miami to provide DRS support. Hamilton's reply was sharp and frustrated. "You want me to sit here the whole race?" That comment revealed the growing frustration inside the cockpit and hinted at something deeper than just a technical issue. Behind the scenes, whispers grew louder. Some insiders began suggesting that politics, not engineering, were playing a role in how the team prioritized feedback. Ferrari's senior staff argued that Leclerc's data had to be the reference because of his 6-year history with the team, but Hamilton supporters pointed out that a 7-time world champion should never be asked to drive a compromised car, just for data collection. The issue wasn't just about speed anymore, it was about hierarchy, and once questions about fairness and team priorities begin to spread, trust can erode quickly. Hamilton and Bonington had once built a connection so strong that even a single breath over the radio could say everything. At Ferrari, that kind of chemistry simply didn't exist yet. Every time fans replayed Hamilton's radio messages during the Imola weekend, they compared it to the old days at Mercedes and heard only discord. Former Ferrari engineer Luca Baldisseri even warned that bad communication destroys a driver's instincts faster than any technical issue. Hamilton himself had once joked that he could tell what Bonington was thinking just from the sound of his breathing. That joke now carried a bitter tone, especially when shared with Italian journalists after a difficult day at Imola. The deeper issue is that data without emotion is just numbers. And in Formula One, those numbers need to be paired with trust, teamwork, and clear communication. A driver's confidence comes not only from how the car behaves, but also from how the team responds in difficult moments. And at Ferrari, Hamilton was beginning to feel that something essential was missing. Technically, Ferrari admitted that brake inconsistency had been haunting them all season. The problem was complex, with Hamilton's car switching from stable to unstable depending on pad temperature, brake dispatch timing, and even weather humidity. Hamilton called the experience unprecedented in his career. For a driver known for his late braking skills, braking at the last possible moment to gain time, such inconsistency is like giving a pianist a broken keyboard. Every lap became a gamble. And while the brake supplier Brembo claimed its parts were within specifications, the blame shifted to Ferrari's design. The team's brake ducts were pushing hot air over parts of the disc, which created uneven heat across the system. Ferrari considered returning to a design from 2023, but knew that making such a big change mid-season could create new problems. At the same time, the drama wasn't limited to the garage. Fans on social media quickly caught on to the radio silence during Hamilton's run. Video clips and screenshots of Adami sitting still while Hamilton struggled made their way across Twitter and Reddit. Some threads accused Ferrari's engineering team of being out of their depth. Italian tabloids ran headlines questioning whether Ferrari had failed by not bringing in more experienced staff from Mercedes. The perception was clear. Ferrari had given Hamilton the car but not the tools or the voices to succeed in it. And then came the public embarrassment. Fernando Alonso, driving an improved Aston Martin, outqualified both Ferrari drivers. After doing so, he added a cheeky wave to the crowd, a signal that unity between a driver and team can still produce strong results. That moment stung Ferrari deeply. It showed what can happen when a team works as one and made the cracks at Ferrari even more